The world has always been shaped by moments where humanity stands at the edge of destruction and rebirth. But no conflict in history reshaped the planet more violently, more completely, and more permanently than the Second World War. This is not just a story of battles. This is the story of ideologies, empires, leaders' collapse, and the moment the world stopped being what it was and became what it is today. The roots of the Second World War were planted in the ashes of the First. After the devastation of World War I, Europe was left fractured, humiliated, and economically broken. The Treaty of Versailles was meant to secure peace, but instead it created resentment so deep that it became fuel for another global fire. In Germany, that resentment grew like a storm waiting for a spark. Inflation destroyed savings, unemployment crushed families, political chaos weakened the state. Out of that chaos, a voice rose claiming to restore pride, strength, and destiny. That voice belonged to Adolf Hitler. By the early 1930s, Hitler and the Nazi Party transformed Germany's fear into ideology. Promising restoration and revenge, they rebuilt the military in secret defiance of international agreements. Tanks returned, armies grew, and Europe watched, hesitant and divided. In 1939, the world reached its breaking point. Germany invaded Poland in a lightning-fast military assault known as Blitzkrieg. Fast tanks, coordinated airstrikes, and overwhelming infantry shattered Polish defenses in weeks. Britain and France responded by declaring war, but their reaction came too late. The Second World War had begun. Europe quickly collapsed into chaos. Germany turned westward. Denmark and Norway fell first, securing strategic control of the north. Then came Belgium, the Netherlands, and finally France. The French defenses, once considered among the strongest in the world, were bypassed through the Ardennes forest. German forces raced toward Paris. Within weeks, the French government collapsed. Paris fell under occupation. Britain stood alone. Across the English Channel, the next battle began in the sky. The Battle of Britain was not fought with armies on land, but with aircraft in the air. The German Luftwaffe launched relentless bombing campaigns over British cities, aiming to break morale and destroy infrastructure. London burned under night raids known as the Blitz. Entire neighborhoods vanished under explosions. But Britain did not surrender. Radar systems, coordinated air defense, and the resilience of RAF pilots turned the tide. For the first time, Germany was stopped. While Europe burned, another storm was forming in the east. In 1941, Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, invading the Soviet Union. Millions of soldiers poured across the border in the largest invasion in human history. At first, the advance was unstoppable. Soviet forces retreated, cities fell, and land was captured rapidly. But the war did not end quickly. Winter arrived. The freezing cold turned machinery useless. Supply lines collapsed. The Soviet resistance hardened. The invasion that was meant to end the war instead became a grinding war of attrition. The Eastern Front became a machine of destruction, consuming millions of lives. Meanwhile, the war expanded beyond Europe. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, striking the United States Pacific Fleet. The attack shocked the world and brought America into the war. The conflict had now become truly global. In the Pacific, warfare took a different shape. Island after island became battlegrounds. Battles like Midway shifted control of the seas. Aircraft carriers replaced battleships as the dominant force. The jungle islands of the Pacific became symbols of endurance and brutality, where every mile of land was fought for with extreme resistance. Back in North Africa, another crucial struggle unfolded. German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, known as the Desert Fox, led the Afrika Korps across the deserts of Libya and Egypt. His goal was to seize the Suez Canal, a vital lifeline of global trade. British forces, under commanders like Montgomery, fought to stop him. In the vast deserts of El Alamein, the war reached a turning point. Supply shortages, strategic planning, and relentless pressure forced the Axis forces into retreat. North Africa fell under Allied control. In 1943, the Allies turned toward Europe. Italy, once a key Axis power, began to collapse internally. Allied forces invaded Sicily and pushed northward. The Italian government fell and Mussolini was removed from power. But Germany continued to fight. By 1944, the largest amphibious invasion in history was prepared. On the beaches of Normandy, Allied forces gathered in secret. On June 6th, D-Day began. Thousands of ships crossed the English Channel. Airborne divisions dropped behind enemy lines. Naval bombardments shook the coastline. Soldiers stormed the beaches under heavy fire. The sand turned into chaos, yet the invasion succeeded. The Western Front had reopened. Europe was now being pushed back from both sides. As Allied forces advanced, Germany began to collapse internally. Cities were bombed, infrastructure was destroyed, resources ran out. Yet the leadership refused surrender. In 1945, Soviet forces entered Berlin. Street-by-street combat tore through the capital. Eventually, Berlin fell. Adolf Hitler died in his bunker. The Third Reich collapsed. In May 1945, Europe celebrated Victory in Europe Day. The war in Europe was over, but the war in the Pacific continued. Japan refused surrender despite devastating losses. Battles like Iwo Jima and Okinawa showed how costly invasion would be. To end the war quickly, the United States made a historic decision. Atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Entire cities were destroyed in seconds. The devastation was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Within days, Japan surrendered. World War II was finally over. But the world that emerged was permanently changed. Empires that had ruled for centuries began to collapse. Britain, France, and other colonial powers weakened. New superpowers rose. The United States and the Soviet Union became global rivals, beginning the Cold War era. The map of the world was redrawn not just by border, but by ideology, economics, and military power. The war had taken tens of millions of lives. Cities were destroyed, entire populations displaced. But it also created a new global order, international alliances, and institutions designed to prevent another global catastrophe. The United Nations was formed. Human rights became a global conversation. Technology and warfare advanced at unprecedented speed. World War II did not just end a conflict, it ended an era, and it began the modern world.